All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's event, Introducing Disability Equity at A.R.T New York. My name is Kirsten Sweeney. I am the Education and Access Coordinator at A.R.T New York. I use she or they pronouns. To give a quick visual description of myself, I'm a white person with medium length, dark brown hair, wearing some dark framed glasses. I've got a white button-down shirt on with a sort of black bird pattern on it, and I'm just sitting in front of some white walls. I'm really excited to have all of you here with us today to learn a bit about this new direction that A.R.T New York is taking with our programming and this new focus that we're having on disability equity. Before we sort of dive into the conversation, I do want to offer up a land acknowledgement. And land acknowledgements are a practice of A.R.T New York's that we do before all of our public gatherings, just as a way of being conscious of the land that we are on, even though we're not all sharing the same land right now. So I will be acknowledging the land from the 5 boroughs of New York City because that is where A.R.T New York's membership is located. But if you are currently located outside of New York, I've just right now dropped a link in the chat to where you can go to learn more about whose land you are on. So I would like to take this moment to acknowledge that wherever we are currently located on Turtle Island, otherwise known as North America, we are on occupied territory. A.R.T New York's membership in the 5 boroughs of New York City operates on the unceded ancestral land of the Lenape, Wappinger, Canarsie, Rockaway, and Matinacock communities. And I will pause to let the interpreter catch up to that. Great. I want to honor and celebrate all of these Indigenous communities, their elders past and present, as well as future generations. I also want to take this time to acknowledge that after there was stolen land, there were stolen people. And I want to honor the generations of displaced and enslaved people that built and continue to build the country that we occupy today. And since we are gathered today in virtual space, let's also take a moment to consider the legacies of colonization embedded within the technologies, structures, and ways of thinking we use every day. We are using equipment and high-speed internet not available in many Indigenous communities. And even the technologies that are central to much of the art we make leave significant carbon footprints, contributing to changing climates that disproportionately affect Indigenous people worldwide. I invite you to join me in acknowledging all of this, as well as our shared responsibility to make good of this time and for each of us to consider our roles in reconciliation, decolonization, anti-racism, and allyship. Thank you. And thank you to Adrienne Wong of Spider Web Show in Ontario, Canada, who wrote the virtual part of that land acknowledgement. All right, so now we are going to jump into talking about this new program at A.R.T New York, the Disability Equity Series. So this program was sort of developed over the past several months in tandem with A.R.T New York's new Disability Advisory Council. You will meet some of those members in a little bit. But first, I want to invite A.R.T New York's accessibility consultant, Beth Prevor, onto the screen to talk to us a little bit more about how this access work has gotten started at A.R.T New York and, you know, where we've come from, where we're going. And I'm just going to take a moment to spotlight these folks, bring everybody on screen. All right, Beth, take it away.
Thank you, Kirsten, and welcome everybody. So I am a white woman with short gray hair, wearing a blue shirt in my kind of virtual office. So welcome to everybody. My relationship goes back to with A.R.T New York many years. Thinking about that, it actually is about 40 years ago when A.R.T New York started a consulting program And Hands-On, which is the company that I run that does sign language interpreted theater, became one of the consultants of Art New York. And at that point, we were sent out to a variety of theaters to talk about what we were doing, which was interpreted performances. And I see that there's somebody here from Manhattan Theater Club. So I will acknowledge that Manhattan Theater Club was the first theater that asked us to consult with them, and was the first theater that we actually worked with as to provide sign language interpreting. So that was the one aspect of my specific relationship with Art New York. But over the years, from both I think a personal and professional perspective, as a person with a disability, as well as somebody who runs a company that works in the field of accessibility, my relationship with Art New York has evolved over the years. And I think the most exciting thing that I'm finding now, having worked with Kirsten and having worked with this kind of new venture of Art New York, is to see Art New York's movement and involvement. I've always been a real supporter of collaboration and collegiality, and this idea of Art New York being a central location in New York City's off and off Broadway theater communities, and felt that Art New York should be this kind of central edifice that holds information and resources and advice to the theater community. So the ability to have it watched Art New York kind of morph into an organization really that is putting disability and accessibility in the forefront of what they do, and really looking at programs, which is something that I'm sure Kirsten is going to be talking about more, but really understanding that we don't want accessibility to be looked at as a one-off. We really want it to be a program. We want it to be housed in a place that the theater community can look to as the experts, as a place to go to for advice and information. And so I think what Kirsten is now going to talk about is where we are now with Art New York. And I'm proud of her, and I'm proud of the work that Art New York has been doing and their growth in this field. And I'm thrilled personally to be a part of it. So I think is that a good history?
Yeah, this is Kirsten. And that was great, Beth. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I really do want to acknowledge that none of what we're doing now would be possible without the years and years of hard work that Beth put into working with Art New York and developing the accessibility program that we have been doing over the years. So thank you, Beth, for all of your work. But yeah, as Beth was saying, what we're really trying to do now is sort of dig into what our values are as an organization, and how we can make sure that our programs best reflect those values. And I am just going to really quickly unspotlight Beth and Justine because it's going to distract me while I'm talking otherwise. Okay. So a few months ago, Beth and I put together a disability advisory council. And this was a group of disabled folks working in all different sort of areas of the theater field, coming in with different backgrounds and experiences, who could help sort of guide Art New York on our practices, both internally and externally. And the reason why we put together this council is because previously, before I got here, it was just Beth doing, sort of pushing forward this work. And then it was just the two of us. And the disability community is so vast and multifaceted. We really wanted to make sure that we were getting in more perspectives than just our two perspectives. And so with this new group of folks who you will meet some of a little bit later, we started thinking about what does it actually mean to serve the disability community in theater. And while yes, accessibility is important, you know, if there aren't ASL interpreters at an event, if there aren't, you know, ramps or, you know, no steps to access a building, then people just can't, from the ground floor, just cannot access that. But there's more to it than just accessibility. And we really wanted to dive a little bit deeper into how we can make sure that disabled folks are really getting an equal and equitable experience, both whether they're, you know, in the audiences, working at a theater, performing on stage, whatever that might be. And so that's where we sort of came to the terminology of disability equity, where we're not just talking about compliance, we're not just talking about one and done programs, we're really talking about deep culture shift and really getting to a place of not just accessibility or inclusion, but of anti-ableism and actively sort of working against the very ingrained ableist structures that have in a lot of ways built the field that we are all working in. And so this is the first iteration of this program. We are certainly not able to touch everything. You know, I think ableism touches so many, you know, every aspect of what we're doing. And, you know, we've got a year of programming to just sort of start digging into some of that. And so we're excited to see how this program grows in the years to come. But what I'm going to do now is share my screen and take you all through an overview of the programs that we have on the docket for this year. Once I'm done with that, I'll introduce you all to some members of our advisory council and have them share a little bit about their experiences and what they're excited about working on. And then we'll open it up to questions from all of you, whether that's questions about our specific programs, about Art New York's approach in general, about sort of whatever comes to mind. But I will start with sharing my screen. All right. So this lives on our website. I will share the link around with everyone if you haven't seen it already, but this is our disability equity series at Art New York. And this consists of workshops that happen roughly once a month, along with a few roundtables and affinity spaces, all on the topic of disability equity, as the name suggests. So we had a roundtable just last week discussing accessible reopening strategies that I believe some folks on this call were at. So welcome back. And then today's event is really the sort of inaugural, you know, welcome to the series event. And thank you all for coming to it. Next month, we're going to be joined by some instructors from Collab Theater Group. And I know some folks from Collab are on the call today as well, so welcome. And they will be leading their Sharing the Stage professional development workshop, which talks about how to, it's sort of more of a basic level, like how to make your theatrical workplaces more inclusive. Also in November, we will be having our first ever Disability in Theater Affinity space. And this is sort of an open roundtable space that is open not just to Art New York members, but to anyone in the New York theater community who identifies as having a disability. This will be a time for us to sort of gather in our own space and discuss issues pertaining to being disabled in the theater world. In December, we will have a workshop called Beyond Accessibility, Making Disability Equity an Organizational Priority. And this will dive a little bit more deeper into strategic planning and how to really imbue disability equity throughout your organization. Starting in the new year in January, I'm very excited that we are going to have sort of a brand new, never before taught workshop on an anti-ableist approach to theater making. We've got a few members of our advisory council working on developing this workshop right now. I think it's going to be very exciting. Also in January, we're going to have a panel about equitable casting practices where you'll get to hear from some performers and some folks from the other side of the table talking about what it means to make the casting process truly equitable, not just, holding auditions in an accessible location or providing, large print scripts, but actually providing disabled actors with an equitable experience in the audition and rehearsal room. We will also have a roundtable discussion that month about universal design. So universal design being the concept of imbuing accessibility and inclusion into something from the start, rather than sort of tacking on accommodations after something has already been created. We're going to take a little break in February and then come back in March with a workshop on including disability accommodations in the workplace. So this would be really great if you hold an HR kind of responsibility at your workplace to learn a little bit more about how to support any of your disabled employees. We will also have another affinity space happening in March. In April, we will have a workshop, an intro to service providers workshop that will sort of give you the down and dirty of working with ASL interpreters, captioners, audio describers, sort of all the different service providers that you might be working with at your theater. In May, Beth will return to teach a workshop that she's taught with us for a number of years now, engaging audiences with disabilities. That will really cover making sure that you are reaching the audiences that you're trying to serve. And because if you build it, they won't necessarily come. And it's important that we do the work to reach out to disabled audiences. And we will also be having a roundtable in May, an image description study hall, where you are welcome to come and bring images that you are working on describing at your organization and either work on them silently by yourself or get feedback from the community about the image descriptions that you're writing. So that's just, will sort of be a fun community space for doing that work. And then in June, while it has not yet exactly been scheduled, we are going to be holding a self-advocacy workshop specifically for disabled folks to work on their own self-advocacy skills, in whether that be in the rehearsal room, in the workplace, wherever that might be. So that is our plan for the year, and we hope that you'll join us for as many as you are interested in attending. I'm going to now stop sharing my screen. And I am going to invite our advisory council members, Sophia, Kate, and Sarah, to come on screen to introduce themselves. And just give me a moment while I spotlight everybody. All right, so welcome everyone. I'm going to, in a moment, just ask you each to introduce yourselves with your name, your pronouns if you'd like to share them, a quick visual description, and what your sort of role is in the theater community, or roles. You know, a lot of us wear many hats. And then I'll also ask for you to just share a little bit about what disability equity means to you, and what you are looking forward to accomplishing with Art New York. And we can start with Sophia.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Sophia Cheyenne. I use she, her pronouns. I identify as a mixed race, cisgender woman with dwarfism. Today, I'm wearing a black and floral top. It's got little cute daisies on it, I think. And my hair is long, brown, and curly. It's down today. I'm zooming in from Hicksville, New York. That's the suburbs of Long Island, Billy Joel's hometown, in case you were wondering. That's the unceded land of the Merrick people. And behind me, you can see in my background, over my left shoulder is my dining room, and over my right shoulder extended is my kitchen. And it's quite messy behind me. So try not to pay attention to that. And I'm also a theater maker, a filmmaker, a teaching artist. I've, circled in the theater space as a performer mostly. And I have dwarfism, so that has come with many barriers and challenges in my life. And so I quickly became a very passionate advocate in my journey. And that's kind of how I got to Art New York, and I've attended many Art New York sessions and been on the audience side for a long time. And then I think it was last year, I emailed Kirsten like blindly in a sense of, not knowing what was going to happen next, and said, I would love to help and be part of whatever access work you're doing. And I think what disability equity means to me is being, as practicing, living, teaching anti-ableism strategy and process, and how we can incorporate that in our everyday lives and in our workspaces. But most importantly, doing all of that with an intersectional lens and seeing everybody's multiple and multifaceted identities. And I think what I hope to bring to Art New York, and what I hope to accomplish with this amazing group of individuals that I've loved to get to know, is to, kind of what Kirsten and Beth has said, is making Art New York the #1 place for New York theaters to go to. Absolutely for disability inclusion work, but also for any and all anti-oppressive, practice, and working on all of those things for our organizations and making sure that we're just making the world a better place. So I guess I think that was all the things I had to say. And thank you so much for having me. And I'm honored to be one of the many people that are serving New York theaters now. It's really an honor to do that. So I reserve the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. It's great to have you. So glad you sent me that random email a year or so ago. All right, Sarah, why don't you go next?
Great, thank you all. I echo so many of Sophia's comments as well. It's a great honor to be able to work with the New York theater community to help forward these ideals and practices. So I am Sarah Halm, H-O-M. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a cisgendered Chinese American woman with shoulder length at the moment, black hair, half of it's pulled back. I'm wearing a white boat neck top with just barely visible black stripes. And I'm wearing some large framed glasses that are black and yellow and gray and white striped. And my background is a digital version of Roundabout Theater Company's Step and Repeat. So it's just purple with Roundabout Theater Company and our logo repeated multiple times over the field. I am Roundabout Theater Company's Director of Audience Services. That's my day job. And then I also occasionally dabble in some theater making, but mainly on the technical side, design, definitely not on stage. And I also work as an access and disability inclusion consultant, as well as serving on the MAC steering committee. So I think those are most of my hats in any case. Disability equity and what that means to me. I think ultimately what it means is that it's not just me in a vacuum thinking and doing these things, that, you know, unfortunately is the burden of folks who identify as disabled, which I do. I have cerebral palsy and I walk with a cane. You know, we have to be advocates and we have to push this work forward because we actually can't work otherwise. And for people besides us, for our coworkers, for our colleagues, for our fellow theater makers to be focusing on this and to be pushing the work forward hand in hand, side by side, is so powerful and so meaningful. So ultimately, I think that's what disability equity means to me, is that this is a shared workload, and these are shared priorities, and not just my priorities, because that's how I identify. And what I'm most excited about for this Art New York work is that we're building a community, we're building a network here. Like Kirsten says, oftentimes it's one or two of us in a room by ourselves doing the work and thinking, gosh, wouldn't it be great if there were others to build upon this, to share the labor of thought, and to encourage each other and to also commiserate with. And what I hope, so that's the first thing that I hope to get out of this. And the other thing is that I would love for us to ensure that disability equity move towards being mundane instead of being an exception. I don't want us to have to think about it all the time. I want it to be side by side in the exact same way that we think about any other person's experience in these rooms. And that's where I hope we get to someday.
I totally agree, Sarah. Thank you. All right, Kate, you're up.
Thank you. All right, my apologies for being masked today. One of the hats I'm wearing is as New York Theater Barn's managing director. We're currently in residency at Theater Lab here on Lenape land in Manhattan. So behind me, you see a couple of signs for Theater Lab and a few past shows that they've done, and some red, white, and yellow art. I am a cisgendered white woman who uses she, her pronouns, who I also identify as a person with Asperger's syndrome, which is now absorbed in the autism spectrum disorder umbrella. So I am wearing a purple jumpsuit with pink blue light blocking glasses, and I am wearing a face mask with the words Tony Awards on it. And I have blonde hair that's pulled up into a bun. And so to start with my involvement with Art New York, so the other hats that I wear are as an educator and sometimes theater director. And with the companies that I've worked with, like for Action Play and Epic Players, we've considered Art New York home for many, many years. And it was the first place I felt like I could just be whatever I wanted to be as an artist or an administrator, and just do whatever work that me and my other disabled colleagues could do. And coming from a more traditional theater background where I felt like I had to fit a type or fit a more classical mold into how I should like act in roles, um, kind of was stifling to me early in my career with my disability. It's particularly hard to know what to say in a professional situation, so I had to try and fail a lot and learn things the hard way to try to figure out what other pathways are involved in theater. And eventually carved a path as an administrator and educator to help other disabled artists not have as hard of a time as I did early in my career. And it's incredibly gratifying to have Art New York not only listen to what I have to say, but also value it enough to be a part of this program and create a workshop series that addresses all the things that we've been talking about in our initial meetings. So I think that with whatever part that I'm involved with this program tackles what I believe is not only access, but also a greater education of how disabled theater artists and workers operate. With being so, for me, disability equity means you understand what the other person is going for, make accommodations to meet them where they're at, but on the other hand, also recognize that you can't fully understand the experience. So it's a blend of meeting you where you're at, but also understand where your shortcomings are from an ableist perspective. And it's not until we figure out like this person needs this accommodation to do their best work is where we actually laid the path to a more inclusive, accessible theater community.
Great. This is Kirsten. Thank you, Kate, and thank you all of you for sharing. I'm really excited to be able to work with all of you and also with the advisory council members that aren't here today. Okay, Sophia, you have something to say? I'll let you chime in before I move on.
I just wrote it in the chat, and I just want to interrupt before we move on very quickly to acknowledge a transparency moment in that I used the word blindly when I was talking about sending an email to Kirsten, and I realized that I think that could have been very insensitive. So I just want to acknowledge that I think I made a big mistake in using that word, and I apologize. And my intention was that I didn't know who was on the other line and what was going to happen next, but I used that word and it might not have been the right way to use it. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and verbally say that, because putting it in the chat wouldn't necessarily help that community also. So thank you for letting me share. Apologies, sincere apologies.
I really appreciate that, Sophia. Thank you. And I think, that's a great reminder that like none of us are exempt from ableism, including those of us who are disabled. I think especially because the community is as vast as it is, and because ableism is as sort of insidious and ingrained in everything we do as it is, that, we're all constantly unlearning. And so I think that's really what this program is all about, or what Art New York wants this program to be about, is like, let's all come together and unlearn together. I don't think any of us here are positing ourselves as absolute experts about how to be anti-ableist, how to make disability equity happen. We're all sort of figuring it out together. And we hope that you will come on this journey with us. All right, and so to continue with what I was saying, I do just want to acknowledge the advisory council members who aren't present here today. As you've heard from these three, all of the council members wear very many hats, and not everyone was available at this 1 hour on a Wednesday afternoon. So I want to give a huge thank you to the other folks who helped make this new program happen. And those folks are Christine Bruno, Greg Mosgala, Marilee Talkington, and Annie Wigand. And I will pause for the interpreter. Great. So thank you so much to this full council. I'm so excited to be working with all of you. And now it is time for you all to talk to us. So, you know, we've been talking at you, and now I will invite everyone in the audience who wants to share questions or even just responses or thoughts to what you've heard, what you've read about this new program. You can either put questions and comments in the chat and we will read them out loud. Or if you would like to ask a question or say something out loud, we'll just ask that you click the Zoom raise hand button, which can be found in the reactions tab in your Zoom menu, and I will spotlight you and bring you on screen. And I see we have our first question from Tucker. So Tucker, you can go ahead and turn your camera on, and I will spotlight you as soon as you do. Great. All right, Tucker, go ahead.
Great job, everyone. My name is Tucker Salafavo. I'm playing classes in Auburn Church for a bandana, Auburn bandana. My pronouns are he, him. I love how this book is becoming a real thing. My question is, will this watch our committee move on to address equity in the near future, or is it just starting at the baseline?
All right, Tucker, I'm going to repeat your question to make sure that we've got it. So you're asking about if we're going to sort of move forward into thinking about equity in the bigger picture, or just stay on the baseline?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, and Beth, also, you are welcome to come back on camera as well to respond. I will spotlight you so we have the full group up here. Great. All right. So I'll speak, you know, for myself. I definitely think that we want to really get big picture with this as we continue to go on. You know, we're starting now sort of testing out the waters a little bit, and what we've offered this year is a bit of like a covering the basics sort of thing. And I hope that as the years go on and we're able to develop this program, we can expand more. I don't know, Beth or anybody else, if you have anything to add.
This is Beth. I think the only thing that I want to add is the thing that really excites me about Art New York taking somewhat of the lead in this whole area is that, you know, as somebody who has lived in New York City for a very long time and been involved in access and disability for a very long time, the exciting thing to me is that Art New York is a membership organization, and their members are 400 plus strong of the theater community of New York City. And if in some way we can come together as a theater community and as a disability community and somehow combine the two, or just you know, be this kind of, you know, I think Sophia mentioned it too, it's be this central location for what we do. I mean, we are the arts of New York City, you know, and theaters run from very big theaters to very small theaters, but it's such a big part of New York City that it's so exciting to me to have Art New York start this process and be a place so that hopefully New York City can, you know, start calling itself an accessible city, which honestly is, you know, somewhat not so much. You know, I don't think that we can say with pride that we are an accessible city. And as a cultural center of the world, as, you know, the place that people come to, that's what I want. I really want us as a community to be as one, to really kind of join forces and be able to say that we are the most accessible and inclusive you know, city in the world with the arts community. So I think it's a start. You know, hopefully it expands, but I think the start is great. And then I'll shut up. But I mean, I think what Kirsten has started to do is really get us out of this idea of if we have one program, then we're done, and really kind of look at disability and equity from a broader perspective, and introduce that to people that this is a new concept for people. But I love the idea of this session and everything that she's saying about, we want this to be more than just, this is how you do a sign language interpreted performance, that we really want this to be deeper and more. And the council is great, and the conversations that we're having in the council are great. And as a membership organization, it's taking these ideas that the council is bringing to a membership of 400 plus theaters of New York City, which is so exciting to me. And I'm so thrilled and honored to be a part of it, that it's a start. And I think it's a great start.
Thank you.
Kirsten, can I jump in? This is Sophia speaking. Tucker, I also want to say that, you know, I think, yes, we have to start at the baseline, I think, because of our capacity right now. But what I feel we're doing too is we're taking the baseline and we're kind of radically changing what that means, which is we're approaching the baseline at an anti-ableist approach. And so, for example, Beth just mentioned, you know, yes, the one-off of, okay, you need maybe ASL interpreters for a show. That can be provided with the service, but why do you need ASL interpreters for your show? And how does that make your theater stick out in a New York City theater base, right? And how will that help you as a theater be part of the theaters that are moving forward with anti-oppressive, anti-ableist practices, you know? So it's sort of taking that baseline and approaching it from an anti-ableist approach, which I think a lot of the people that are building these workshops and series are feeling that this is like with context and history and real life examples of why this is overdue, you know, why this is way overdue. And I'd also just want to say, maybe offline, you and I or someone else from the committee could talk to you about what does beyond the baseline look like for you? Because I think that would be really interesting. And obviously we're talking about it, But, how can we look beyond the baseline? Because I hear your point. So that's all I wanted to say in response.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify my question because I work for Peter Boykin for Power Goods. And we have been trying to break this misconception that professional freedom is disabled freedom. We could look at every other marginal group and we still are at the bottom of it. So I'm happy to get involved.
Thank you, Tucker. I'm just going to repeat a little bit to make sure the captioners and the interpreters catch what you said. So let me know if I missed anything. So Tucker was sharing how he works for Theater Breaking Through Barriers. And, they're doing a lot of this work with different marginalized communities and how often disability is sort of like left for last or like the bottom of the list. Is that accurate to what you were saying?
We don't actually, we people tell us that we're not professional enough and it needs to change.
Yeah, that's actually, I think, like a common thing with a lot of disability specific theater organizations, that the work that they're seen, that their work is not seen as professional work, that it's
but we are a professional of Broadway company. So what is the difference?
yeah, I mean, the difference is ableism.
I was
Yeah.
just going to also jump in. This is Sophia speaking. Tucker, let me know if I'm accurately saying this as well, but you said before, like, professional theater is disabled theater. And so, what happens, what we're seeing in society is like maybe companies like Theater Breaking Through Barriers or these other disabled led companies aren't being taken seriously and put at the same level that perhaps other theater companies are being put at, because these are professional theater companies that are hiring their actors, using the union contracts, doing it just like everyone else. So there's, yes, and I think that divide is in that ableism, and that it's a charity model of disability, that we talk about, that people might see disabled theaters as, oh, that's good for those folks, or that now that community has a little place to hang out. Isn't that nice? But what TBTB always says is, no, we are a professional theater company. So I think we totally hear your point, and I just wanted to make sure that I understood what you were saying there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Kate speaking. If I can briefly jump in. So I really appreciate Tucker's comments about how we, among the disabled performers and other theater administrators for those companies, have to validate our purpose in the theater. So something just maybe why we don't see actually disabled performers performing roles like Richard III or Laura from Tennessee Williams plays, is that sometimes they pick those actors that are very good at networking, or they went to four-year colleges that had great reputations. But if you know anything about the disability education space, is that they sometimes set up disabled folks to not even attain high school diplomas. So how are they supposed to gain access to these college degree programs that are supposed to train them to be actors if the education system starts to fail them when they're very young? So we don't see actually disabled folks because they're not getting into the equal training program or conservatories that many prestige performers have been getting into. So we need to open up our casting and also our understanding of who is capable of doing work in front of audiences and behind the scenes, because sometimes they don't have a traditional resume or education or background that you typically see in someone who shows up to work in a theater.
Absolutely. Thank you for everybody who chimed in to that. All right, I want to make sure that anyone else who had anything they wanted to say has that opportunity. So if anyone else has any questions or comments that they want to share, feel free to raise your Zoom hand or pop it in the chat. All right, and if not, that is okay too. So I do want to thank you all for joining us, and thank you to Beth and to the members of the Advisory Council who were able to be with us today. I really hope that you all will consider registering for as many of our upcoming sessions in the Disability Equity Series as you feel interested in attending. I've just dropped the link in the chat to where you can go to register. I'll also share that in a follow-up email. If you have questions or thoughts about how we are running our programming or how we're thinking about disability equity, you want to, outside of a workshop, get a little bit more insight into how you can advance disability equity at your organization, or you just want to give us some feedback about how A.R.T New York is doing, you are always welcome to email me. I am typing my email in the chat right now. You will also get it in your follow-up email, but again, because this is so new, we are always open to hearing from all of you about how we can do it better and what you all want to see out of our programming. So again, we really appreciate you all being here. I want to again thank Tara, our captioner, and Jamie and Justine, our interpreters, for doing such great work today. And have a good rest of your Wednesday afternoon, everybody.